obviously, Gyökeres is one of the strikers on the market. Victor Osimhen is another one of the strikers on the market. Kweku, if you had a choice between those two, because I feel like they're probably the only two that Chelsea would really go for right now. Maybe Delap as well. I think it depends on if Man United get in the Champions League. I think that makes his decision a little bit more difficult. Just out of the three of them, really, I suppose, Gyökeres, Osimhen and Delap, who would you go for if you were Chelsea?
I've been on record and propped Delap so much all season. In terms of his goal output, at a team like Ipswich that haven't created many chances, are one of the worst teams in the league, he's still scoring goals. He scored against us, and he was a handful against us.
He was a handful against us in both games.
In both games. Came off the bench in the second game, scored in the first game. And he's just... For me, I've said it on many shows, I'm going to say it again. Do you know when you look at the thread of England strikers, right? And it goes from Gary Lineker to Alan Shearer to Michael Owen to Wayne Rooney to Harry Kane. I think that Liam Delap is the next one. 30 mil relegation clause in his contract. I think you can go and get him and get somebody else if you're smart with your transfer business. So he would be my preferential choice. I do think he'll end up going to Manchester United. Out of Gyökeres and Osimhen, it's a tough one, right? Gyökeres has burst onto the scene this season. He's been very good at Sporting, scored a lot of goals. I would just lean towards Osimhen. I think Osimhen is, he just seems more like a Chelsea striker.
It does feel like a Chelsea
striker. Feels like a Chelsea
striker.
striker.
I was thinking, before you said that, I was thinking, he's a Chelsea type
of striker. What is it? Why is that?
He's a little bit raw, he's a little bit unorthodox, and I like the fact that he's got to put himself about. When he put a ball, I don't know if you remember it, Newcastle away, early part of the game, and it's a brilliant cross that came in on the left-hand side. Can't remember, it probably was Noni. And the ball's gone across the 6-yard box, and I'm looking at Jackson, and Jackson's on his heels. I want someone that's going to throw themselves at him. He's the type of guy that will throw himself, and even balls he's not favourite to win.
I think Chelsea do put a lot of balls in the box, don't we? And there just seems to be no one in there that's going for it. My only worry with Osimhen, I think, if we're thinking logistically and actually sensibly, why is he playing his football in Turkey? That's my only question.
There's a political decision that way. I don't, Napoli are paying. He's a Napoli striker. Why are they going to send him out on loan if he's? I felt he fell up the club. That couldn't sort it out, and we were very much in the race from what I could gather. And then it got so late in the day that I believe that a loan deal was only possible, and I think that's why he probably didn't want to end up at Turkey. That wouldn't have been his choice, would it?
Well, it got so late in the day, and the Turkish transfer window was open for a few days longer, so that's why that was the only option for him. And Conte, when he came in, said, "I want Romelu Lukaku. I don't want Victor Osimhen." He's playing in Turkey, scoring goals, not just in the Turkish league, but in the Europa League. I remember they played against Spurs. He absolutely bossed them. Doesn't say much against Spurs, really. But he's a striker that... I saw him up close and personal at AFCON, and I was a bit disappointed. He scored one goal for a Nigeria team that made the final. And if you're going to get into final third and not take your chances, in the Premier League, your team will be punished. So he's not the most clinical, but I think in terms of physicality, he reminds me a bit of Costa. In terms of the way that he's willing to make runs in behind, he has a bit of that as well. So for me, I'll take him over Gyökeres, but I wouldn't be disappointed of either, to be fair.
Do you not think wages will be an issue? Because I feel like the reason he went to Turkey was because he didn't want to reduce his wages. That's a big part of his decision why he goes to certain places. With our wage structure at the moment, there's just absolutely no way in any world that Victor Osimhen comes in unless he takes a pay cut.
It does feel as though it's a stumbling block.
Yeah, massive one.
A big stumbling block. But then someone else has got to come up. I mean, there's creative ways now of structuring contracts, as we've seen with these.
Just give him a 20-year contract.
There you go. Problem solved.
But if you want to be a team that's playing the Champions League regularly and a team that's winning titles, you're going to have to break that model eventually. I get it in terms of getting us to this position, but eventually, if you want to start bringing world-class players to the team or to the squad, you're going to have to maybe break that model to an extent for the really special players. I'm not saying that he's extremely special. I'm not saying that he should come in and earn more than Cole Palmer, but Jay said, there's creative ways of
well, I mean, look, we haven't even spoken about players got to leave. I mean, Raheem Sterling comes back. He is, I believe, the highest. There's a lot of players that are on huge wages right now that are going to come back, and the decks need to be cleared. That squad has got to be trimmed down, which should free up quite a weekly salary.
Well, talking of how we could potentially save money, Petrovic has been Strasbourg's player of the season. Now, we've spoken about goalkeepers a lot on this show. Is that position still a priority? And after his season at Strasbourg, Jace, would you give him a chance?
I've got to be honest, I haven't seen him. I've not seen enough, heard good things. You know, there's obviously a lot of Chelsea accounts out there on social media. I follow those that give feedback and watch him more often than I do. That is a decision that needs to be made. I was a little surprised he went out on loan in the summer, but that's happened and that's done. We now got to welcome back. We got the young boy Penders, the Belgian goalkeeper, who's supposed to be the next Courtois.
We've got like 8
We've signed
goalkeepers.
Yeah, we've got lots of goalkeepers, but a lot of them are very young. A decision needs to be made, and it needs to be made very quickly about who is going to be the number one next season. Because the last 2 or 3 seasons, it felt as though we don't quite know who is our best keeper. Sanchez has been in. Petrovic comes in. Poch then dropped Sanchez for Petrovic. New manager comes in. Petrovic sent it on loan. There's not been, it feels like a really clear idea. Yeah. That decision has got to be made for the best of the football club and, of course, each of the players. It's interesting what we do now in the Club World Cup, because that's just around the corner. He's a Chelsea player. Would he be part of that squad? That's an interesting thought.
He should be. And if you look across the country, the top teams are getting their business done early. Arsenal have already sorted out Zubimendi. Liverpool, Frimpong's coming in, now talking to Kirkes. That looks like it's happening. Last summer, teams kind of stood still. If you look at the effect of like first team players in terms of what clubs bought, who did Liverpool buy that improved their first team? Nobody. Who did Arsenal buy that improved their first team? They bought Moreno, but is that really like a game changer? Who did City buy that improved their first team? Nobody. And so teams stood still last summer. This summer, teams are going early. We need to have a big summer if we want to compete where we want to compete next season. And I think we will.
I just hope the Club World Cup doesn't get in the way, because it's a bit of a nuisance.
It does open for a little bit before the Club World Cup, doesn't it? And then
it does. But, you know, get your ducks in a row. Yeah. Because when the Club World Cup goes on, you'd think that the concentration efforts of some of the people at the club will be out in America.
Yeah, definitely. It was a positive weekend, shall I say. It was a few Chelsea players that won trophies. Let's start with Chelsea women, because what a season they have had. Winning the domestic treble, they beat Man United at Wembley to win the FA Cup. What a season they've had. Sonia Bompasta has just become the 3rd manager to win a domestic treble in the WSL. Laura Harvey did it for Arsenal, and of course, Emma Hayes obviously did it for Chelsea. Just first of all, let's just touch on that as a whole. An incredible first season.
Absolutely. You can't help but think what a wonderful season she's had. And big boots to fill in Emma Hayes. Yeah. You know, probably the biggest boots in women's football, right, at club level. She's come in and done it brilliantly. The fly in the ointment is going to be the Champions League. Yeah. We got well beaten in both of those legs. That's something that we'll look back on and go, what can we do better there? But in terms of domestic, there's done everything.
Unbeaten domestically. Unbeaten in the league, unbeaten in the cup competitions. You can't really ask for much more in her first season. And we wondered if there would be a drop-off after Emma Hayes left, and that there hasn't been continued the success. But like Jay's touched on, the holy grail for Chelsea is now Champions League. And the way that, I know Barcelona are clearly the best team in the world, but the way that the most dominant force in the WSL kind of falters in the Champions League every year is a little bit troubling. But obviously new money coming into the women's team. The founder of Reddit is invested some money, so the rich just get richer. Yeah. And hopefully with that investment can not only progress Chelsea, but also progress women's football.